Hello, and welcome back to the Heal with Grace podcast. Today, I want to talk to you about something that a lot of people are curious about when it comes to recovery. What does recovery actually look like when you're healing in the mind body way from your chronic symptoms, chronic syndromes, chronic illness? What does that actually look like? And is that actually possible? Right? Not the one day you'll wake up and never think about your body again version, but the real true recovery after years of symptoms, after years of doing this work, and specifically what care of your health looks like after this mind body healing, or actually, really more so during it. This whole health thing, right? What does that actually look like in a way that you don't have to be so focused and hyper fixated on it? You don't have to think about so much about what you're eating, how you're not messing up your body, or you're messing up your body, or you're waking up fearful of how your body's going to react. Once you've soothed this and built more stability and confidence and regulation in your body so you don't have as many symptoms, like what's realistic there? What does that actually look like? And that's what I want to talk to you about. Because a lot of people are asking, like, am I doing this right? Why do things still show up for me? I have this timeline. I'm going on this trip in a few months and I really want to be healed by then. And I want to talk to you about how that can actually be harmful, that pressure that we put on ourselves, and then what to do with that. And we want to slow that all the way down today. So let's go ahead and get into it. But I first want to mention that if you have not already, I would highly recommend also looking at the article that I just wrote on how I have actually entered recovery and what it looks like and how I'm not perfect because I just had a flare in my body that was incredibly painful, actually, but I still considered myself recovered. And I share all the details with you there and exactly how I got out of it and how you can too. And that is linked below in my Substack. So if you want to understand more detail oriented and just get a glimpse of how I moved through it, highly recommend looking at that. Okay, let's start with a myth. There's a myth that probably mostly coming from social media and just online, right? The myth that most people might see as once they have regulated their nervous system, they're healed. And the belief that recovery means you never have symptoms again. That is false. That is not true. First and foremost, because there is no completion of healing your nervous system. I know that, I mean, to be honest, I know I've said that sometimes. I get it. It's the language, but I just want to break that down because first and foremost, our nervous systems are not something to necessarily fix or have this perfect place state of being healed. Our nervous systems are actually meant to help us move through in and out of stress states and digest relaxation states. So we're supposed to move through that all throughout life. Healing and regulating doesn't mean you get to a point and all is good and you don't struggle or have pain or go through grief or anything like that the rest of your life. That's not human. That's not reality. We all go through things. So I want to set that stage. But it's also not a stage of negativity where it's like, well, you just have to deal with this and there's ups and downs all the time. And that just is what it is, right? There's a sense of that, but the intention and the way that we approach that is different. So it's not this like once you're healed, nothing uncomfortable ever shows up in your body, no pain sensations, no weird moments. It's more that when something does, you change the way you respond to it, which actually changes the way that it shows up in your body. And that you don't actually have to be in constant pain or illness all the time. It's more so things pop up here and there because remember, if you've been listening here, having physical sensations in our body is a human condition. Every single person on this earth has had some sort of physical manifestation of stress, whether that's a headache or tight shoulders or an upset stomach, or if it's chronic stress, you get sick more often, your immune system decreases and lowers. That's all very normal. So that might happen. But the reason we do this work is to, one, help ourselves get out of that constant fight or flight place, the constant place that keeps you stuck and in your symptoms. I also want to address one more thing here too, that when we have the belief that nothing ever happens, it actually keeps our body under more surveillance. Because if your definition of healing is nothing happens again, I'm good, I don't need to experience pain again, then your job becomes monitoring constantly to make sure nothing happens. And this creates more vigilance, and vigilance keeps the nervous system in danger mode. So for a lot of people, the hardest part of healing isn't always learning tools, but it's actually letting go of watching the body all the time, always constantly wondering what's going to happen or noticing I have this higher stress in my life right now, or I had a fight with my partner. Oh my gosh, I don't want my body to react. That's a tough place to be. And we're going to get into that a little bit more. And I'll share with you how I actually moved through that recently. But we have to let go of the expectation that we're going to be just totally fine, or let go of the expectation that we're going to be fine by a certain amount of time. So, what often happens when I have people come to work with me is that they say, I'm so tired of this. Like, I've learned about nervous system and mind body, and I feel like this is what I need. And I can tell this is, I want to learn, right? Like, I'm ready, help me. And then they say, by the way, I have a trip I'm going on in a few months, or a wedding I need to go to by April. And I don't want to have these symptoms again. I don't want this a part of it. I don't want it to ruin my trip. And of course you don't. I've been there so many times. And also, we have to let go of that in order for our bodies actually to relax and be able to move through it. Meaning, be able to learn the skills and the tools for that actually to happen. But if we have this expectation, especially when it comes to time pressure, when we have this time pressure of like, oh, I have to feel better by then, or I can't feel bad on this day, or don't want to drive in the car for X amount of hours or go on this plane because what if my symptoms pop up? What if I get super anxious or have a panic attack? Totally valid. That would suck. And from personal experience, been there, like, I don't even know. I can't even count many times. But you know what happens when you let go of that fear? As much as possible, right? I'm not expecting perfection. It allows you to actually be in this healing modality, actually learn how to feel safe in your nervous system, knowing that you have the tools and the skills to get through that really difficult plane ride if you need to. So we're not expecting it to not happen. We're allowing ourselves to know that we can handle it if it does happen. And here's a shift that happens when we do that. One, it tells the brain, okay, maybe we don't have to be so afraid, which then the brain signals to the body, hey, we're not in danger, which then can sometimes actually allow symptoms not to be there or like relieve them of their job as being protectors. Now, it doesn't happen every single time. I cannot have a magic ball to tell you that's how it's going to work. And I don't want you to expect that either. We don't want to bypass the work being like, okay, I got to do this practice. I got to regulate my nervous system and just to be in it, right? Just so that the pain will go away, so the symptoms will go away, so I'll be okay. Our brains are so much smarter. Like, it's not going to work that way. So when we can let go of how long this is going to take and what it's going to look like, that is where the secret sauce is. That's where actually real regulation and healing can take place. So my point being, when we put time pressures on, obviously it just creates more pressure and stress. The goal is to build up the confidence and the security within you to know that if something does happen, if you do have a flare, if you do have high anxiety in the middle of the plane ride, you can handle it. It's not fun. It's not pleasant, but it's okay. You can do it and you'll get through it. And then actually you'll be really glad you did because then you're on your trip. And that's obviously just one example. But like truly from personal experience, I've had many miserable travel times, miserable plane rides, miserable times walking through the airport, feeling like like I couldn't make it. So I get it. But to be honest, I'm glad I did. Because if not, I wouldn't have gotten through that and like built up the confidence to know that I can do it and had a great time because I allowed the symptoms just to come along with me instead of them driving the show. Sometimes I might have driven the show a little bit, but I hope that makes sense. Like, we're taking them along with us. And when you have that expectation, then it actually decreases the danger signal, which actually decreases the amount of times that you have symptoms. Yeah? Okay. Question of, can you fully recover? So I kind of answered that so far, but let's dig into it a little bit more. First and foremost, yes, 100% yes. There are actually plenty of mind body practitioners and people out there that say that they really don't have symptoms anymore. They had a couple things that they worked through and that's gone. They don't. And so you absolutely can. It's so person to person specific how it works and what symptoms you've had and what your history is. There's just so many factors, right? But I want you to look at recovery rather than this all or nothing, black or white, more from a place of like, how do I actually feel with myself? How do I engage with myself in my life? Because if you're in your symptoms and you're struggling and you're frustrated and it's truly impacting you to where you don't go places, you don't do things, you don't engage socially, you're not working, or it's truly hindering your life, I want you to look at recovery as like, I can be in my life no matter what. I can actually feel good about me and my body and myself and my life, and things can happen. I'll be okay. That's amazing recovery. And within that, the way that that happens also means symptoms and illness either decrease or go away. It all works together. Recovery means that symptoms lose danger, they lose urgency, and they lose meaning. It means your nervous system no longer interprets every sensation as a threat. Because the truth is, nervous system is designed to fluctuate. Stress happens, life happens, and bodies respond. But some people do become mostly symptom free, and that does happen. But that is not the requirement for being recovered. So you've heard me talk about on here. There's truly some symptoms that I've experienced, like especially early in my 20s. I don't anymore. My food sensitivities, I have not had any of those issues since then. There have been a couple, like 2 times. I can count 2 times in the past, I don't know how long that's been, 5, 6 years, that I've had a histamine type reaction that I used to have, but 2 times. And it lasted a couple hours and I saw it, I worked with it, and it went away. Now, other things have come and gone a little bit, and my body definitely talks to me when I'm in high times of stress or I'm dealing with something emotionally heavy, but it's nothing like it used to be. And to be honest, I've now accepted that that's kind of part of how my nervous system, my growth in this lifetime works. Recovery is when symptoms no longer dictate how you live. They no longer drive your life. I used to just completely collapse when I felt anything. I was like, I can't work for today. I can't do this. I can't do that. I just like shut down my life because I was too afraid. I didn't know what it meant, no matter what it was. Anything from, I don't know, pain in my shoulder to high fatigue. It didn't really matter what, it just shut me out of my life and I became hopeless and despair and just, I collapsed. The difference now is that first and foremost, that doesn't happen all the time. And if there is something that pops up, I meet it, I get the support that I need, and I'm still in my life. There might be a few things that shift, but that's about it. So we redefine that. By redefining it, it takes so much pressure off. That redefinition alone can be incredibly regulating because as you're actually doing that, you're signaling, hey, I'm actually okay. I can do this. I can be here. I can feel this, right? And then it starts to decrease whatever physical symptoms are your body's trying to use to protect you. So all in all, there's less monitoring and more presence, and there's less scanning and more living. And when sensations show up, there's a response instead of a reaction. And actually, let me define that for a second. So a reaction, you might have heard this in terms of relationships, right? When you want to respond to someone instead of react. Reaction comes from a place of defense, of fear, of activation from our old belief systems or parts of us that were hurt or that were wounded. And so when those places, for example, maybe a part of you feels like there's an abandonment wound for you. Maybe you had a lot of rejection or abandonment in your life previously. And so whenever there's a hint of that, even when it's not logically true or in front of you, someone says something that you perceive as them stepping away from you, or maybe someone doesn't respond at all. Maybe they take a few days to respond to your message. And that part of you, that part that feels like, oh no, what if they're leaving or what if they're abandoning me? Which again is not always logical, but it is subconscious. That part might activate your stress response because it's really scary for your nervous system to be there and feel that. When we react to that activator, maybe you get really defensive and you send an angry text or message saying, I can't believe you took this long to respond. What are you even doing? This is kind of extreme example that I'm truly just making up in the moment, but follow along with me. So that's a reaction when we react from that abandonment place. When we have a sensation, when there's a pain, this is what I actually talk about in my Substack article. When there's a pain, like I had my neck lock up recently. And previously, I would have reacted with, my gosh, what's happening? Oh my gosh, this is so painful. Oh my God, I need pain pills. I need all the creams. I need to go see the chiropractor right now. And oh my gosh, I'm not going to be able to go climb. I'm not going to be able to go do my exercises. I'm not going to be able to do X, Y, and Z. I can't even work with this kind of pain, right? Like I would become so anxious and fearful. This time, my response was, not gonna lie, a little fear. I mean, it was a little scary to feel that amount of pain. I haven't felt that in a very long time. And so it was like I had some fear come up in my body. And so I felt it and I noticed it. But instead of reacting with that fear, I responded with so much care, so much love. Like I treated my body and that fear like it was a child being really scared, because essentially that is what was happening. My inner child was being activated. And so when I can respond with that love and grace and compassion and breath, I was able to soothe myself, help myself through it, carry the pain along with me throughout my day, throughout my week. And it didn't completely derail my life. It changed my plans a little bit for things that week. Definitely changed about, how much I tuned into myself, but it wasn't this place of like deep fear and reactivity. That's recovery. There's flexibility with sleep, with travel, with your routine, with food, with stress. Recovery is not always the absence of sensation, but it's the absence of fear. Okay, so what does taking care of your health actually look like when you are in recovery, or you might consider yourself recovered? So there's a really important distinction here that taking care of your health, when it comes to physical health, emotional health, mental health, spiritual health, it can look pretty different when you're not in survival mode. Because when you're in survival mode, you are acting out of desperation and fear. And that can then impact how you treat yourself in your life. So that might drive more rigid behavior around your routine, more rigid behavior around your sleep, around your food, around your day. Just truly coming from a place of like, you want to help yourself. I get it. Totally get it. Maybe your therapy or your mind body healing tools become something that you are so hyper fixated on and obsessive about. Maybe the type of exercise you do becomes fixing instead of actual enjoyment. Or maybe the nutrition you want to give your body because it feels good becomes too rigid in a place of fear instead of enjoyment and true nourishment. When you're in recovery, this becomes flexible. You can check in on your body physically and emotionally and mentally without spiraling. Movement then becomes about enjoyment and energy. Nutrition becomes about nourishment, not fear management. Nervous system tools are used when needed and maybe consistently, but not so rigidly. And care becomes intuitive instead of rigid. And this is often confusing for people because they've spent years equating care with control, right? But when the fear isn't driving the bus anymore, care actually gets a lot simpler. So maybe you check in and get updated testing every year or two, and you take it with a grain of salt. You give yourself the benefit of the doubt, and you're like, okay, well, my levels here are a little bit off. I'm going to help and support myself instead of being like, oh my gosh, what did I do? How did I make this happen? How could my body be in such a state of stress? Or I got to dig and get all these tests on to make sure nothing is wrong. That's hyperfixation around health. That's high health anxiety. Instead of, I'm actually going to take things in a flexible manner, unless obviously something is calling your attention and you need to get it checked out. Totally do that for yourself. But when we are constantly searching for tests and specialists and doctors because we're so afraid of what's going on with us, it's really hard to actually care for ourselves from a place of true grounding nature. So your routine shifts, and everyone is totally different with this. For me, I like a little bit of flexibility, or I go through phases with movement. I go through phases with food. It just kind of depends on maybe the season or time of my life and what's happening. That's flexibility. With other people, maybe you really absolutely love to do the same thing every day. Great. It's more about when it doesn't happen. Is there fear there? Is there dysregulation there when your routine doesn't happen? Or when you don't have your supplements that you take every day, or all the different holistic healing tools that we're now supposed to have at our house, or the amount of steps that you're supposed to take every day. If there's fear when you don't have that, that's just a little bit more to look at. So I want to remind you, being recovered doesn't mean you don't get stressed. It doesn't mean you don't have physical reactions or you need to take care of your health. It means you're resilient. You know your nervous system can move through things without everything falling apart. Recovery isn't fragility. It's resilience. Yeah. This is where we want to land. The goal of healing is not protecting yourself from life. It's building the capacity to live it. So healing isn't about keeping your nervous system perfectly calm forever. It's about having enough safety inside to handle real life. And at a certain point, living fully becomes the regulation. Your nervous system doesn't need to scream anymore because your life isn't constrained by fear. And that's more recovery, not about the perfection of it, not the constant calm, but true freedom. If this is something that you don't really understand how to get to, or you're kind of like, okay, that sounds wonderful, but like, how do I do that? Right? That is where I want to invite you to find the link below for the Mind Body Healing Method. It is my self-paced course that you can do on your own time at your own pace. And you have all the skills and the tools that I go so much deeper in than just on this podcast to truly give you step-by-step tools in order to get to this recovered place. It is the bread and butter of the work that I teach, and it is what has gotten all the clients that you've heard on here from really sick and stressed to recovered. So I find the link below. There's also option to add on coaching calls with me. Lots of people find that that's supportive. They have the everyday tools they can go into on the app where they can learn about it and help themselves. And then we dive into a coaching call to dig deeper into the places they might feel stuck. You can't see everything, right? We can't see our blind spots. So I invite you to find that below, the Mind Body Healing Method. And if you have any questions at all, feel free to DM me, message me, and I'll figure out if it's a good fit for you. All right, y'all. I hope you're having a good day, and I will talk to you next week. Keep healing with grace.